Next, I want to create a custom validator. So this is a great way to define your own logic to test a property to decide whether or not you would like to throw an error or not, whether or not you would like to store the property or not. So let me show you how to do that. Okay, so let's go over to our schema, and I want to create a custom validator on the snack property. So instead of string here, let's remove that and let's add an object, and we will add the string back as the value to the type property. And the second property here will be validate. And we are going to include two properties within this validate object. Validator and message. And we're simply going to add a couple arrow functions here. So first, let me talk about what we're going to be testing for. This is just a simple example, so probably wouldn't have much real world weight. Since it's our snack property, we want to test a string. And the best thing I can think of that's simple is to test for a plural snack. So instead of accepting banana and bananas, we just want to accept banana. So let's check for a string that ends with an S. Now I know this wouldn't be a good validator in the real world, but it's a simple example. So let's add our function here as an arrow function. Value. And let's test the regular expression S $, that means it ends with an S. Use the test function and pass in the value as the argument. And then down here for the message property, let's do another arrow function. Property is the argument, and property, and let's do backticks. Template literal property dot value and should not be plural. Save. Okay. And now let's go over to our snack model where we're creating the document, and let's make it plural. And save. Alright, let me just look at this. Let's add back our sweet property. Bananas are sweet and they're not savory. And I just wanted to do that because I want to isolate this test to show you that it's working and that there isn't some other error validator in play, because we were testing for the existence of this property before. So let's go over to Postman and send. Okay, I'm seeing that it allowed bananas to come through. That is because we actually tested for the existence of the plural, and we need to test for not existence. We do not want the S. We'll add the exclamation point, and let's try that again. Okay, there we go. Bananas should not be plural. Perfect. There it is. That's a custom validator with a regular expression. Just a couple more simple validators that I can show you. The first one is the enumerator validation, and that will basically just test a string for the existence of a finite amount of values, and you would add those in array format. So I'll show you that. Let's add that here. Enum. Alright. And we only want to accept cupcake, taco, and candy. And we'll save. And let's go back to our snack model here. Let's leave this bananas and see what it does. Send. Okay, so bananas is not a valid enum value for path snack, and it shows the actual values here. That's great. And let's see this pass. So let's go back over and make it cupcake. Okay, it stores the document. Let's see if our plural regex tester still validates. So let's go back, and the way we'll test this is we'll have to allow the value in our enumeration, cupcakes. But since we have a validator that does not allow S's at the end, let's see if that still validates. We will create a new document with snack name cupcakes and send. And there it is. The S regular expression validator still validates the property, even though we allowed it in our enumeration array. So let's just do one more example here, and I'd like to show how minimum and maximums work. We need to add a number property. So let's do prep time, object, and type number, comma, min 5, max 30, and let's add a comma down here, and save. And we actually want to remove the error that we were trying to throw earlier with the cupcakes. So let's go back over to our insert function, and let's just make it cupcake. And now let's add a field here called prep time. We're going to save this in our new document, and let's watch it succeed. Okay, 25 is within the range. Go over to Postman and send. Great, prep time 25. There it is. Now let's make it 35. That is out of range. It's over 30. Send. Path prep time 35 is more than maximum allowed value 30. So there's our error message. It's very descriptive, and it will help us. Alright, excellent. So I showed you a bunch of validators and how you can use them to your advantage. Okay, there's one last thing that I would like to touch on before we move on, and that is default values. I did mention this before and we talked about it briefly, but default values are something that you can define in your schema. Kind of like how we define our validator and our type, we can define a default value which will get stored in a document's property if you do not explicitly store a value there.
So if we leave off prep time, but there's a default value for 15, then that document will have a value for the prep time property of 15. If I do explicitly send 35, that 15 will be overridden and we will store the actual number that we inserted. So let's go over to our schema and define a default value for our prep time property. We'll find prep time, and right underneath type number, we will enter and define default 15. So this will store 15 in the property if nothing is explicitly inserted. Save, and let's go over to our model where we're actually passing in values, and let's get rid of prep time altogether. And hit send, and we have prep time 15. That default value stored into our document. And let's go over and see what happens when we explicitly define a property value. We'll go back and include prep time back into our insert, and let's say 13. Save, send, and there it is, prep time 13. The default value was not honored because the property was not blank when we inserted. Okay, next time we are going to build out our project more and create more schemas, making this more complex, and I will introduce the methods that we'll be using to perform database operations.